All right, this is Noel Kearns. I'm a photographer with a little bit of expertise in the area of junk. I'm a night photographer primarily. I photograph abandonments and ghost towns and roadside abandonments and places like that. And I have been asked this month to score the contest and judge your work. And we're starting off with the beginner's monochrome category. Ball and paint cans. I gave this image a score of 7. The primary thing that jumps out at me about this image is it's a little flat for me. There's not a lot of dynamics in the image from the standpoint of tonality. I think there's a pretty narrow range dynamically on it. Also, there's nothing that really jumps out at me tremendously as a subject. The central focus on this thing that I'm not really sure what it is sticking up in the front. Nothing at it grabs me and pulls me in and makes me want to go explore the picture more. Classic Texas 47. I also gave this an image a score of 7. It's a license plate on an old car. On this particular image, I have a large black wash underneath the bottom of it where I have no detail whatsoever. I'm not sure what's going on there. It almost looks like it's been manipulated to be that way. I'd like it to be a little bit sharper. This is a detail image. It focuses on some very crusty, very old Texas memorabilia in a sense, and this is a kind of image where you really want to go crisp with it. The matte finish paper is not bad, but I think on an image like this, a crisp focus with a glossier paper I think would help pull it out too. International junk. I gave this image a score of 7 too. This image, I would have scored it considerably higher, actually, much higher, had it not been for one artifact, either the digital manipulation or the printing process, probably a combination of both. The dark cloud area directly above the truck cab, there are artifacts from manipulation and printing. Something in there is giving me a series of wavy lines. In my experience in the past, that's from overamping contrast in an area, and then possibly in the case of this image, printing it on a printer that did not have the capacity to really render the full tonal range of the shot. Other than that, I like the image a lot. The contrast is strong. It's a good compo, but that to me really downgrades the image quite a bit. Beware of dog. I like the presentation. It's on a black foam board of some type. The interesting thing about the image is I tearaway edges on it. Actually work pretty nicely for this particular image. Tonally, the image is really strong. I see a lot of dark blacks. I see a lot of nice crisp whites. The Beware of Dog really stands out nicely. One could argue that there's not really a terribly strong subject other than the thing as a whole, but I kind of like this one. This is a little unusual, but I generally don't care for this kind of paper, cardboard paper, the no finish at all on it, but I think for this image it works pretty well. I gave this a score of 8. The Light in the Dark, which received a score of 8. This is an image that I think is pretty strong technically. It could probably use a little, in my estimation at least, a little more contrast. I think the focus is nice, and it's not a bad image. I'm just not I guess not my favorite. End of the Road, which I gave a score of 8 to. This is a pile of tires in a field of weeds. This is an image that I think you could say lacks a terribly compelling subject because these are just old discarded tires, and while it certainly qualifies as junk, I guess, I'm not real keen on it as a subject. However, I think there's a lot about this image to like from a technical standpoint. It's a very crisp focus. I like the depth of field on it. I think the only technical drawback I feel to it is in the maybe a little bit of blown out weeds at the top where they're getting hit by the light a little bit more. They're not really blown out. They're just a little lighter than I think I'd like to see them. Skates, I scored with 8 points as well. This is an image that I think is pretty strong. There's 1 or 2 edge issues for me on it. There's the 2 cups primarily in the top left corner of the frame. I'd rather have seen them all in the frame. I'm generally not a huge fan of vignetting, but this is an old junk image. I think that lends a little bit of kind of a melancholy feel to it. The image isn't quite straight in the matte. There's a little bit of white showing at the top, but that doesn't kill me. And it also, by the way, it is very nicely focused. The depth of field with the crispness on the front with the Sears Roebuck looks really nice. It doesn't really grab me as something that is compelling to me, but I did place it, 6th, I guess, overall, so it's not a terrible image at all. I think this is a very nicely done shot. Things go better with Coke, which I gave a score of 10. This is an image that it's of an old Coke machine with a milk jug in front of it. Very textury, which I like a lot. I love textures, and this thing is just crawling with it. But and there's some cars moving by on the back, giving a sense of motion and a sense of kind of keeping the image from being too static, which is a good thing. The image is a little flat for my taste. Clearly it was shot on an overcast day or a day with a lot of clouds. I will say that the sky is very clearly heavily manipulated, and there's been a lack of attention to detail in the cloning at the top right of the Coke machine around and I honestly just noticed that. I probably would have scored this image lower had I noticed that earlier. Paint junk, which placed honorable mention. It's the number 4 image in the grouping. I gave it a score of 11. I mean, this is, I think, pretty easily the strongest composition of the group. The texture, the different shapes. It's just all about the lines and there's really, I mean, we've got what looks like a shirt with a hand sticking out on it. There's really nothing that jumps out terribly at me, but the whole thing as a whole, compositionally, I think is really pleasing. I like it a lot. Probably part of the reason I like it so much is it's a composition that I think I would think of. I like this kind of thing a lot. So I think it's a really nice job on the door here and a nice photograph. Tinkertown Wagon, which I gave a score of 13, which puts it in 3rd place. This is a beautiful image. I think it's very nicely presented. The textures, this thing is just amazing, and the light. I think more than any other image in the category this month, this image really captures a really nice sense of light coming from the left, upper left of the scene. Normally, I like, as I had mentioned earlier on another print, I like this kind of image printed on something that really pulls out the sharpness. But even on this matte paper, which I think lends itself to this style of a photograph, even on this matte paper, it's very, very crisp. I like everything about this picture. It's very nicely done. Under the Table, which scored 14 points and came in 2nd place, this is a beautiful shot. First of all, the presentation is very nice. The black matte with the white line edging on it is beautiful. This looks like a zone system study. It's really beautiful work. The texture and the detail. There's nothing I can really fault about this. I think this is beautiful. The depth of field, I think, is just right. It draws the eye to the things that you want to focus on, and the crustiness. You know, you can really get a sense of what this, if you were to put your hand in this picture and feel this stuff, this picture perfectly captures what this would feel like. And I think this is a beautiful piece of work. Congratulations on this one. This is very nice. Forgotten Ford, which is the 1st place image in the beginner monochrome category, and I think very deservedly so. It's a beautiful photograph. The detail in the texture in this truck is just remarkable. You've captured it very, very nicely. The one thing that did trouble me about this image that is really beyond your control, I know, it's what appears to be a skewed hood that doesn't quite center up the way the rest of the truck does in the frame, or at least the lower portion of the truck. But that lower portion of the truck is so crisp and so beautiful. The tonal range is excellent. The presentation, again, is actually very similar to the 2nd place image, and it's very, very beautiful. I like them both a lot. I also like this paper. This is the kind of paper I like to see this sort of image printed on, because it just pulls out the crispness and the detail and the texture wonderfully. So this is a picture I wish I had taken. This is gorgeous. I really like it. Congratulations. Okay, this is the beginner color category. No More Fields to Plow, which I awarded a score of 7.2. I have 2 big problems with it. There's kind of an overall lack of crispness, coupled with some edge issues on the right side. There's some little traces of branches from a tree that we don't see sticking in the right side of the sky. I'd like to see those cropped out. That would also move the tractor a little farther to the right, which might help the composition a little bit. It's a wonderful find, that tractor. And an interesting angle on it as well. But there's a little lack of crispness in the image that in this kind of thing, I think I would like to see a little bit more of. Tractor, which I gave 7 points. When I first looked at this image, my initial thought was I wanted to see it printed smaller. There's a lack of clarity in the image at this size. It's not pixelated, but there's a definite lack of sharpness to it. This is an image that is of crusty detail, and crusty detail you want tack sharp. Another thing that troubles me with this image is the missed opportunity for an adjustment of the composition. If you look at the right edge of the image, the vertical line there, the edge of the radiator, I guess it is at a pretty severe angle, either in post-production or ideally in the field composed so that you're squaring those lines up. Get your camera back to level instead of shooting up or down with that wide-angle lens, and that'll do it for you. Junkyard, which I gave 8 points. This is a shot, probably the closest thing I've seen so far in any of the sets to a journalistic photojournalism shot. This is a large pile of rubble from a demolition with a crane truck next to it that's still got its feet down, looking like it might have just finished its job here. Compositionally, I can find really very little wrong with this shot. This is a well-composed shot. The subject is the pile of rubble. I'm not terribly compelled by a pile of generic rubble that I don't know what it's from. I'm not sure what I'm looking at here now. If I had more information, or if the image itself was able to convey more information to me, I might be a little more compelled by it. But as it is, it's presented nice. The matte and the photograph itself is nice. Maybe a little soft for its size, but in general, it's a pretty nicely presented image. Give Him the Boot, which I awarded 9 points to. This is of a cowboy boot. Doesn't look in all that bad a shape either. Strapped to a steel post in a fence with some flowers sticking out of it. It's kind of a pretty picture, pretty flowers. I would argue that this boot stretches the definition of junk perhaps a bit, since it hasn't really been discarded, but actually turned into a utilitarian piece of yard art, you might say. The thing that I noticed initially about this image is the detail in the stitching on the uppers of the boot. Very nice and very crisp. It's a very nice shot from that standpoint. The depth of field, I think, is just right. Out of focus in the background, it really draws your eye into the detail of the image. I will say that I'm not that compelled by the subject, which is why I graded it a little bit lower than I might otherwise, and that in conjunction with the fact that I think it maybe does stretch the definition of junk just a bit. Discarded Shoe Planters, which I gave 9 points. This is a collection of shoes on tree stumps. This is a very unusual thing. I mean, it's one thing to use shoes, but yet then there's also slippers there. That's kind of strange. This is another image that might stretch the definition of junk just a bit. Kind of like the last image, this isn't really a subject that compels me and draws me in and makes me go, wow, I want to look at this picture, to be real honest about it. It's a fairly well executed shot. It's perhaps a bit soft in a couple of places. It's a very natural looking photograph. It looks like a photograph, which I like. I'm big on photographs that look like photographs. But I gave it 9 points and graded it down really just mostly from the subject standpoint. Retired to the Garden, which I gave 10 points. This image is really, it's kind of cool. This is this old truck with the all the foliage around it. I think it's very well captured. It's a nice composition. You shot it from a great angle. I'm not terribly keen on the paper that was used, but I think it works reasonably well. I would really have loved it if the really modern-looking garden hoses had not been on the hood, and maybe the blue tarp wasn't there, but I know there's obviously always kind of some restrictions that what you can and can't do when it's a subject that you don't have complete control over. This is a nicely composed and rendered photograph, and I think the complete matte paper looks pretty good on it. Oh, the Irony, which I think is a nice picture. Or a nice title, I should say. I gave it 10 points. This is an image of a place. I think I know where this is, actually. It's a collection of old cars, as far as the eye can see almost, with a Jones Blair paint sign on the side of a truck. This is kind of an image that is sort of my deal. I do this kind of thing a lot. Old cars are fun to shoot. There's one glaring technical glitch to this image to me that probably had an impact that lowered it a position or two in the rankings for me, and that is the uncorrected sensor dust in the top right corner. This is a pretty nice image. I gave it 10 points, and it's very well printed. It's I think the glossy paper, the bright sunny day, I think it all works pretty well. Wall Junk. This is I gave this image 11 points. This is an image of a kind of a teal green fence, bricks. I really like the composition on this. It's a neat image. One could argue that maybe there's not anything which you can point to and call specifically junk on its own in the image, but it certainly is a junky image. Not that the image is junky, but there was junk-y stuff in the image. I like the fact that you weren't afraid to print it small. And I think it really works in this size. A little bit larger might not be as easy to appreciate the composition with. Couldn't Stop, which is a collection. This might be the image that is most deserving of being in the junk category, because there is scarcely a thing in this image that is not junk. It looks like the old car, hood, lights, tires, everything. Nice collection of stuff here. There's a lot of interesting stuff to look at. I mean, there's obviously the car is the centerpiece of the shot, but there's so many things. Your eye just moves from one thing to the next, kind of picking stuff out. It's clearly been HDR'd a bit, which is something that I'm not generally terribly keen on. But with this image, it kind of works, and it fell just out of the top 4 for me. But it was close. I liked it. I gave it 11 points. Iron Lotus, which I gave 12 points. I really like this picture a lot. I think it's a really strong composition. It's obviously a texture study and a detail study of the plants and everything here. And this metal tulip, I guess that would be. The texture and the color in here is just amazing, and it's nice and crisp where it should be. It's got a shallow depth of field as would be appropriate, I think, for this kind of shot. And the tonal range and the overall presentation with the matte and everything is very nice. This is a beautiful job. This is a very nice image. 2 Irons, which I awarded 3rd place with 13 points. The first thing that struck me about this image after I looked at the irons was this carpet or quilt or whatever this is sitting on. I think it's an old carpet. The detail in that and the texture and the colors are just really, really striking. And the texture, obviously, in that iron that's in the foreground as well as in the background, those are both really, really well done. Only area where I might criticize this image is in the bricks in the back. They're a little blown out on the right side and a little, but I applaud you for not overdoing the correction on that, because I don't find it terribly distracting from the subjects of the image. I think this is very nicely captured and easily deserving of 3rd place in the category. Rusted Wind Chime, which I gave 14 points to, which is good for 2nd place. This is a really nice image. The first thing that jumps out at you, or jumped out at me, and I think always jumps out at people when you look at an image printed on metallic paper, is that it's printed on metallic paper. And for certain types of photographs, metallic paper there's just no substitute for it. And I think it works really well with this image. The colors just kind of pop. You really get a sense of the rustiness to it and the texture, and that's what this image is all about. It's a detail image. You know, compositionally, the angle you shot it from. The one thing I might have preferred is if there wasn't the little shadow over on the right side at the 230 point. But in general, I think it's a great image, well captured. It's striking. It draws you in. You want to look and dig into the textures of it, and it's very well done. Cadillac Ranch, which is good for 1st place and 15 points in the beginner color category. There wasn't really much question in my mind when I looked at this image that this and compared it, looked at all the others, and this one to me came out head and shoulders above all the rest. It's an image not so much about any one thing in the image of the composition as it is about just the splash of color and the you know what it is as soon as you see it, because if you've seen Cadillac Ranch, this is what you got. It doesn't look highly manipulated. It's printed beautifully on like a luster paper. It's presented nicely. The green matte's kind of an interesting choice. I don't know that I would have gone with green for this. The image is so strong, I think that it rises above the green matte personally. Just overall, I really, really like it. The white balance is spot on for it. It looks wonderful. I think this is a very, very nice shot and easily the winner for the beginner color category. All right, this is the advanced monochrome division. I'm looking at All That Glitters, which I awarded 6 points. There are a couple of things about this image that kind of trouble me. I can't tell whether it's motion blur or just image fuzziness somehow. There appears to be some manipulation around the edges of the head there. I'm not sure what's going on there. Center the head. If it's going to be close to the center, center it. If the text at the bottom isn't going to be included to where I can read it or to where it's completely included even if it's unreadable, crop it out. Don't put half of it in the image. And third, the screws at the top. I don't know if I need the screws at the top anyway, but I like the idea of capturing this like you have done, but I think there's a little work left to be done to actually nail it down. Swift tire, which I gave 7 points. I guess this is at the Swift Meat Packing Plant, which is a place near and dear to my heart. I've shot that place more than anybody else I know, and love it out there. I don't remember this tire, but I do remember the tracks. My only criticism of this is a little bit of overall softness. The near edge of the tire is just not crisp, and it's a little bit of a shallow depth of field for me on this. The weeds, you've got weeds that are so close that they're blurring up into the image. Also, there's a little bit of white showing along the edge of the image right by the mat. I kind of like the black mat with it, but just in general, I think the image is a little on the weak side. Roadside plow, which is a picture of an old plow by the side of the road. This image, the plow itself certainly qualifies as junk, and I think is an interesting subject. Honestly, I think I might have liked to have seen this shot from the other angle, from the other side, because the road itself is to get the lighting effect and the tonal values that you've got on the plow. That road is really blown out. That's to me is a huge distraction. That big white area behind the trees and the plow up there. Compositionally, other than that, I think it's a strong image. Yeah, I gave this 7 points, and yeah, I think the composition's good. The presentation's fine. I just can't get past that blown out road at the top. Whaleboat chain. I think compositionally this is a very strong image. I awarded this 7 points primarily for a couple of technical issues. I think subject matter wise and composition wise, I think it's a fine image. I'm not really keen on the toning, the slightly blue-green tone to it. I would have preferred a more of a neutral black on this image instead of that. The other issue that I have, actually there's two others, a lack of sharpness from I think over sharpening. Sometimes you can sharpen to the point where you start to actually lose detail, and it almost feels like what's happened here. I think the biggest issue is just above the chain there is some sort of like a water tower or a pump or something back there that I see a lot of white showing through. Some masking going on there, and wasn't masked at that point. Just in general, the image is a little black and white. It's not enough mid-tones, and the blue toning is it's not working for me on this image. Repair truck needed, which I gave 9 points. You know, one of the first things that struck me about this image was the gray-white border you put around it. I kind of like that. I think it really kind of puts a nice frame around the image. The subject matter itself certainly qualifies as junk. I'm not sure what happened to the guy driving this thing, but it probably wasn't pretty. It's a messed up truck. Looks like it might have been an old telephone truck. This is another one of those images that I think looks like a photograph. It doesn't look manipulated in any way, and I like that. I will say, though, that I'm not really compelled by the subject. While it's certainly damaged and demolished and everything, it's not something that really draws me in and makes me go, this is a picture I really want to hang on my wall or anything. I gave it 9 points, I think, mostly on technical merit and presentation. Going Nowhere, which I gave 10 points to. I really like this. This is a very crisp shot without giving away the neutral tones, which you do sometimes when you over sharpen. It's nice and sharp without losing a lot of the detail in the cabin, because this thing it's just nothing but texture around that truck. There's nothing to it except that. You've got the texture in the tree leaves, you got the texture in the grass, and I think it really it just draws your eye, obviously, to the truck in the center. I might have liked to see a little bit of a tighter compo. I understand what the premise here was, but overall, this is a very nice image. I do like it. Maybe a little fancier presentation might be nice. There's a little bit of a yellow strip running down the edge from the printing. In general, very nice image. Wheel hub, which I awarded 11 points to. An old spoke wheel hub. Again, this is one of those images that's all about the texture, and a little bit of a shallow depth of field for my taste on this one. Sometimes that works, sometimes I'm not real keen on it. I think the depth of field gets a little shallow on this one too soon as you look to the back. The front looks great, but the back of the spoke, the inside of the spoke, or the hub, starts to get a little soft. I'd like to see that crisp all the way back. Other than that, I think it's a very strong image. The composition, the execution, the luster paper, it all looks really nice, and it's presented quite nicely with a black frame or black mat, and looks very nice. Staple the basket here, which I awarded 11 points to. This is a very nice double mat on this. This is beautiful, beautiful presentation. The image is quite nice too. The toning of the monochrome portion is quite nice. I'm not generally a fan, typically, of the selective desaturation. I think this one looks very nice. That's why I awarded it, placed it pretty high, higher than I would normally for something like this. I think overall, I really can't fault this image. I think it looks really nice. I like it very much. Bathroom sink, which got 11 points and came in as the honorable mention image for the advanced monochrome grouping. This is a nice image of an old, very, very decayed wall. I like this kind of subject. In fact, I shot one similar to this in Brownwood, Texas at an old theater. So I like this. The one thing I would say about it is it appears to be just very slightly, this is an image about lines and compo because you've got the tiles and you've got the baseboard and the lines of the sink. It appears to be just slightly lower on the left, like it's not quite centered in the mat properly even. I bet you got the image right, but still, this is a great image. The tones and the textures in this, I think, are very strong. I like it a lot. I gave it 11 points and an honorable mention. Old Truck, which was good for 13 points and third place in the advanced monochrome category. This is a very, very balanced image. The composition is nice. The weeds are captured. Everything is just as it should be. The tonal range, the detail in the hood of the truck and the grill, it's all just really beautiful. Some might fault the blown out top portion of the Quonset hut in the back, but it doesn't distract. It almost actually, for me, sets to frame out the top line of the truck. So I like this image a whole lot. This and the next two images above it, I think are all, it was really kind of hard to decide between this one and the next two. It's a beautiful image and you should be congratulated for it. Seen Better Days, which I gave 14 points in second place. And this was difficult. This is a beautiful, beautiful photograph. If somebody told me Ansel Adams took this, I wouldn't doubt it for a second. This is a beautiful image. The texture, the detail, the detail even in the glass of this image, the tonal range of the sky is gorgeous in this. It's a beautiful shade of gray. Beautiful image. I really can't find anything to fault with this. I like it a lot. This is another image like in a different category that I mentioned. This is a picture I wish I'd taken. This is really, really beautiful, and I congratulate you on this really image that belongs in a higher category. Pickup Graveyard, which is the winning image for the monochrome advanced category, good for 15 points. This is a beautiful infrared image. The detail and textures in these trucks is just spectacular and gorgeous. I love it. Again, this is another image which I have a very, very hard time finding any fault with at all. Other than that guy's butt over on the right-hand side of the picture, leaning into the truck over there. I would have given that guy a 5 and told him to go take a Fresca or something and sit down for a minute, I think, instead of having him in the shot. It would be almost impossible to crop him out of the image the way the truck is, third truck across the front row is up against him. But this is a gorgeous picture. When an IR is done well and properly like this one, they're just beautiful. Those trees came out wonderful. I can't find really fault with this image at all, like I say, other than just the guy. You know, that's a subjective thing too. So congratulations on a beautiful photograph. All right, this is the advanced color category. I'm looking at Retired Rock Picker, which I awarded 6 points. This is an image that, for me, didn't really offer anything that drew me into it. It seems, on the plus side, I like the fact that it doesn't appear to be manipulated in any way. It's natural cone. It's a straight-on 3/4 angle shot here. It's what our world looks like, which is one of the things I try to look for in a photograph. Pile Up, which I awarded 6 points to. Technically, this image is very strong. It's just an image of an old red car that's been discarded and is sitting in a junkyard. And frankly, I mean, to me, this image looks as though it could have been taken by the people who were the occupants of the vehicle and were just glad to have lived through it, and they just wanted to take a picture of it to show their friends. It's a well done image, but I'm not compelled, much like the Retired Rock Picker image. I'm not compelled by the subject, but I will say that this one is better technically. Retired Boxcar, which I awarded 7 points to. This is another nice presentation here with the double white and cream matte. Very nice. This appears to be a HDR image where the shadows have been lightened quite a bit, and then the image has been saturated heavily. Those are two things which, for my taste, can be overdone, and this image, at least with the greens, overdoes it. I'm not, the subject matter doesn't compel me terribly. The HDR effect is a bit strong for my taste. A different judge might feel differently about it, but I'm not keen on the excessive coloration of the image. Tired bluebonnets, which I gave 8 points to. It's a pretty simple shot, and honestly, shots like this are kind of hard to compose because it's a tire in a field with some bluebonnets in it. How do you compose that, right? Do you center it? Do you put it in the corner? What angle do you shoot it from? Where's the light? This is about as good a picture as I've ever seen of a tire in a field of bluebonnets. That presumes that I might have seen one before, and I'm not sure I have, but it's executed very nicely. You've got the tonal range, and the colors are vibrant without being excessive. I gave it 8 points because, like many other images I've seen here, it's not a compelling image to me or a compelling subject to me. Out to Pasture, which I gave 8 points to. One thing I like about this, and the first thing that struck me, is the unusual format of it, the extreme wide flat crop that you have, and I kind of like that, and it obviously fits the subject matter perfectly. It's a nice image. I've got no problem with this image other than the fact that it's again something that you see so much of that I want to see kind of a fresh take on this, and this is kind of a predictable shot of it. I know that a lot of folks maybe in this contest shooting junk and things like this is not really their strong suit or something they do often, but to those of us who do, we see these things all the time, and so we look for unusual ways or ways to kind of take a fresh angle on these things. And it's presented quite nicely. It's exposed and printed quite nicely. It appears to be a pretty natural image, so I'll give you kudos for that. Maybe just try to find some more detail or just a different angle, a different take on these things so that it's not quite as predictable. Okay, this is Final Resting Place that I gave 9 points to. I will say right off the bat, this is kind of an image that goes a little against my typical preference in images, in that I'm not real keen on HDR and HDR looking type images. That's kind of what we have here, but I do like the idea here. The compo and the ironing board itself is cool looking. It's a nice image. It's definitely one of the more tastefully done of this type image that I've seen, and I like it because of that. So gave it 9 points. Came in 6th place. Canned Crane, which is a oil drum sitting in a what looks like a school gymnasium with an old backboard. My kind of place. I like this a lot. I love the exposure values on the drum and even on the floor. I'm troubled though by the out of focus backboard, because that backboard is almost a secondary subject in this composition. The other thing that troubles me about this image is the blown out windows and hole in the roof above the backboard. And I try not to do this much myself. I do it occasionally. I almost would have gone for a composite image, an image exposed as you have for the interior of the building, and then another one exposed for the back wall and the outside. Into the Road, which I gave 10 points. It's an old pickup truck and a junkyard of pickup trucks. With stuff growing up through it. I like that. This is the kind of place where you might find me now and then. The colors in this, the blue and the rust together, really creates a neat look. I like this a lot. Technically, this is a very strong image. I will confess, this isn't an image that is terribly compelling to me from a subject matter standpoint. I think the colors, though, the balance, I mean, you can't fault the composition. It's a great overall image, and I think technically very strong. Winds up being honorable mention for the advanced color category. Gilliland Kitchen, which got 13 points and good for 3rd place. This is a shot clearly of an old kitchen in some sort of an old building, a school or a hospital or something like that. There's a lot of white in this image, which makes it a little more challenging to capture all the textures and the subtleties. But this image does a really nice job of that. Some would find fault with the blown-out window, but I applaud you for not going after a compromised internal exposure for that, because that's how it looks, That's the way it works when you take a shot like this. So I like that. One thing that I am kind of curious about is this reflection, or as someone else here suggested, lens flare in the lower left corner. That's an interesting artifact of whatever that is down there, but that little trace of color in this otherwise almost monotonic image kind of adds a little interest to it. So overall, this is, I think, a very nice shot. Good for 3rd place in the advanced color category. This is Pastel Cherry, which is just a beautiful shot of an old Chevrolet pickup truck that has been painted, evidently, pastel cherry or some form of pink. And it really captures all the rust and the pink and the shadows, and more so than any image I've seen so far, this is just all about the textures and the tone. And on top of that, the composition of the lines of the different body panels. Overall, this is just a wonderfully captured shot. Nothing blown out, nothing blown under. Just really perfect. A beautiful, beautiful shot. You should be, you probably are, and should be justifiably very proud of this shot. Very, very nice shot. Congratulations. Pipe Dreams, which is a pair of green pipes against a multicolor background, painted brick. Gorgeous shot. Just pops. The paper choice is just perfect. I like to see this glossy paper on any sort of an image where you're really looking for crisp, crusty detail. It works perfectly for it. The colors, the textures, it's sharp, it's crisp. It's just absolutely pops off the page and is a very strong kind of an abstract. Beautiful shot, and was pretty easily my first choice for this first place choice for the advanced color category. Congratulations. Okay, this is Masters Monochrome, Saab on top. I awarded Saab on top 7 points. There's a quality about this image. It's almost an abstract image. There's a feel to the some of the dustiness on it that almost doesn't feel photographic in a way. Not that it's not, it just doesn't. I don't get a feel for depth in this picture. Something about it seems to have a little bit of depth removed from it. It's very textury, but again, this is one of those stacked up correct cars in a junkyard situations that doesn't really compel to me too much. It's a convenient and easy way to shoot junk, but it's not, for my taste, compelling junk, which is why I gave it 7 points. All right, I'm looking at Holy Junk here, which is, I awarded 8 points to. I love the holes. I assume that's gunfire of some sort. Guys out drinking Coors and shooting holes in the wall. One of the first things that I noticed about this image was that I would have preferred it non-sepia toned. It's few and far between the images that I see that I think look better sepia toned than just in pure black, and this is not one of them. I would like to have seen this in pure black. I'm kind of looking for a subject. I know it's The Wall, that's based on the title, but there's nothing really that draws me into this shot a whole lot, and it is also a little bit soft. There's an overall softness to it that kind of doesn't bring out the texture in that rusty corrugated aluminum there. So 8 points. Cast-offs, which is kind of an abstract image, a collection of a lot of different parts of vehicles of some sort. It looks like probably cars or maybe a collection of different things. And I kind of look at this as an abstract, and I kind of like it. I like the large black space. I think it's a pretty good use of that space. It kind of really calls out the shape, which is why I gave it 10 points. I think the composition is fine. There's some edge issues that maybe indicate a little photoshopping. I don't know if it is or not, but something about this looked a little funky to me, and I kind of like the image, but I think there are some stronger ones out there. Okay, this is Junkyard Blues Till We Meet Again, which is also the title of the sculpture here, if you can't read the inscription on the base of the statuette here. A little wood carving, an old man playing a harmonica. A very well exposed image, nice tonal range, some whites, some fully saturated blacks. It's a well done image. I gave it 11 points because of that. It's just not something that compels me terribly, so I put it here towards the back of the pack. Keys to the Past, which is a pretty well done sepia toned image. I think this image works better sepia toned than the previous one I mentioned, Holy Junk. This one's all about the texture, and it calls it out. This image appears to me to be have had the tonal range edited, sort of HDR in a way. For my taste, that eliminates some of the texture that could have been in this image. There's a depth that you get in a photograph by having shadow in it that creates a depth and a three-dimensional effect that you lose when you over lighten your shadows and pull back your highlights. This image is well done. The textures are there. The composition's pretty solid too. It's probably kind of a hard subject to compose. Vanishing Vehicle, which was awarded 11 points. This is a very crisp, very, very textury image of an old car sitting in a junkyard. It's very well done. I find very little to find fault with this image, with the exception of one thing. which is kind of a glaring, a standout thing, and that is there's something fishy going on in the car behind the subject car. In the what appears to be the backseat window, there's a much lighter area that is, if you look in the window in front of it, it's solid black. That looks natural. Whatever's going on in the back here does not look natural. It has the look of being heavily manipulated in that area and somewhat carelessly manipulated because the other black inside areas do not match it. That kind of troubles me. I don't really see much of a need for editing there. I'm not sure what's going on, but it looks a little funky. However, the front car is the subject. It's a wonderful job of capturing that. The processing on it looks great. The flat paper even on this image, pretty good. I'm not generally a big fan of the flat paper, but it looks good on this image. Gave it 11 points. Okay, this is wheels. This was a picture that in this grouping first jumped out at me because of primarily the composition. I like the fact that you got creative with the wide landscape format on it, and I think it's a balanced composition. You did a great job on it. It's a very nice image. I gave it 12 points. It definitely qualifies as junk. These old wheels aren't going to get used again, most likely. The tonal range is good. You've got whites, you've got blacks, and you've got everything in between. You haven't compressed it for a look or a style, and I like that. It's a natural-looking photograph. It looks like unless you've given a treatment to the corners and edges, it almost looks like it's a real print too. I like the image, and I like the presentation, especially with the full-size conventional frame size mat, but without a backing board on it. I think it's going to be a little fragile and delicate to mount. I'd recommend going with a backing board on an image like this in the future. And I gave it 12 points, and this is a very nice shot. Good job on that. I awarded Junk Store 12 points. Beautiful image. I'd like to have awarded it higher. It's an amazing photograph. The balance, the composition, everything about this is just perfect. One could argue that there's not really a whole lot of junk in here because obviously this is some sort of a store, evidently probably in a place called Elk City, perhaps an old tableau that they put there just to attract tourists. But in any case, it's a very nicely exposed photograph. The composition is flawless. The execution is flawless. The presentation is simple. It doesn't distract from the image. Not a thing that I don't like about it. I think this is a great job, and you should be very, very proud of the photograph. It's wonderful. Good work. I awarded VW number 3 12 points. Much like the last image, I would like to have awarded it more. This is a great photograph, the inside of an old Volkswagen. What's really nice about this shot is the proper exposure that you have outside of the Volkswagen, as well as the detail that you've retained inside it. That's not an easy thing to capture. I know from experience myself that there's especially on a day like you had there with a lot of bright sun and shadows, that's very difficult to do. Now, I don't know whether you composited that or whether it's a single exposure and just manipulated, but however you did it well. It's a beautiful image. Easily honorable mention in this category. Okay, this image is Glowing Junk. I awarded this 13 points. It took 3rd place. This is a really, really balanced image. The exposure here is wonderful. The blacks, the whites, the capture of the feel of glass. Glass is not always an easy thing to photograph and retain the clarity and the reflectiveness of it. And you've done a wonderful job of that, especially over on the left side, that largest cylinder tube that's kind of pointing towards pointing up a little bit. There's a little sparkle glow right there that you probably won't be able to see on screen in the meeting, but it's very well done. It's a beautiful image. Another one of those images, it's all about the texture. I don't know what these little tubes are for, but it's not important in this shot. What is important is the abstract textures and the details and the contrast between these shiny glass objects in this old rusty, looks like a truck bed or whatever that is. So wonderful shot, very well executed. The print is perfect. This luster type paper it's on is beautiful. Excellent job. Congratulations. This image is Brenda's truck. It's of an old International Harvester truck lost next to Brenda's Cafe. This truck, the body shape is just really compelling, and you've shot it from dead on in the front, which is a very compelling angle too. The tonality and the texture in the truck body itself, as well as the detail in the grille and the headlights, it's really wonderful. It's a great job. When I first saw this picture come out of the collection, I was inspired to give it 1st place until I saw the one that I awarded 1st place to. This is a very, very strong second place image, though. I like it a lot. Now, some might find fault with the fact that the truck is not balanced in the image. It's not exactly centered, and it's leaning to the right, but that's the way the truck goes. What are you going to do? I still think it's a very strong image. I like it a lot. And I got to say, the presentation on the mat board, I think works really well. This is the only image I've seen so far that has been presented like that. I like that look. It's kind of, I did a show a few years ago with gator board like that, 1/2-inch thick gator board, and I like that appearance. Okay, this image is trunk latch, which gets 15 points, and I will go ahead and say I think this is easily the most impressive image I've seen, not only in this group but so far in the judging process. It's an old trunk latch on a Plymouth automobile, and it is printed on what looks like metallic paper. If it's not metallic, it's definitely a high gloss, but I think it is metallic, and it is just gorgeous. The chrome looks real. The sense of dimension you get in this image and the texture conveyed is just amazing. This shot has been attempted by just about anybody that's ever photographed an old junk car, and this is easily the best example of it I've ever seen, ever. It's really, really amazing. I want a print of this. And congratulations on winning first place this week or this month, and a beautiful, beautiful image. All right, this is the Masters color grouping. I'm looking at a picture here. It's called Automotive Flower Pot. I gave Automotive Flower Pot 7 points, partially because even if it's not being used for its original purpose, I have a hard time seeing it as junk. It's a very nicely done image. The blues are very vivid and rich, and the composition is solid, if a little predictable. But again, this is another one of those images that I find technically solid. The presentation is excellent, but it just doesn't compel me as a subject. It's not something I'm really drawn into to look at. It's kind of cute that somebody had the idea of turning it into a flower pot, but that doesn't mean it, to me at least, makes a great picture. Okay, this picture is called Abandoned. It's a Volkswagen in a field out in a desolate portion of the country. I gave this picture 7 points as well. In a different way from the Automotive Flower Pot, it's kind of a predictable composition and photograph, although I am gratified to see that you stood the telephone poles up perfectly straight. That looks nice. Again, this is a subject that for guys like me who are used to shooting junk, seeing this kind of thing all the time, I'm not that compelled by the subject or the image itself. Maybe a different angle. There was a Volkswagen in the Masters monochrome that was shot from the inside that had quite a bit to offer. I like that shot, but this shot leaves a little to be desired on the compo, hence the 7 points. Okay, this picture is tidy but still junk, which I guess it's junk in a way. It's not junk as we defined it, I guess, in the definition for the rules, where we say that it's old discarded stuff that you might find by the side of the road, large or small discarded stuff. I guess it's your junk, and I will say this: it is a perfectly composed image. The colors are gorgeous. It's a super nice print, beautiful image. Again, it's just not something I'm terribly compelled by, but it is a beautiful print and a good job. I gave it 8 points. Hiding in Rusted Despair. I gave this picture 8 points. This one's all about the colors and the tone. It's very vivid. The colors have been amped a little bit. It's highly saturated, perhaps a little bit of an HDR treatment, perhaps not. In any case, it's a little bit of an abstract compo. It's kind of hard to figure out what you're looking at here composition-wise. I mean, obviously it's a truck or a vehicle of some kind, but and looks like the engine compartment over here, but it's a little bit different. It's not a picture I'm terribly compelled by, but it's a worthwhile effort and an interesting idea. Okay, this image is Discarded Flower Pots, an abstract of some very, very crusty, it's like steel flower pots here that are rusted, and the texture is what this is all about, and lots of it. And I do like the compo. The green, the little patch of green up there, I kind of like that, actually. Some people might find that distracting, but I actually kind of like that. Kind of breaks it up a little bit, gives a little context maybe. I gave it 9 points. It's a good compo, but again, the subject just doesn't compel me that much. I gave Shards of Glass 9 points. If Discarded Flower Pots is abstract, this is even more abstract. It's clearly broken glass, but it's a little hard to tell exactly what you're looking at. So this is all about the the shapes and the forms, and it's certainly strong in that area, and looks like there's some water involved as well in this image, hence the bubbles around the top left corner. It looks like it's been processed kind of heavily, but that's okay. It's for an abstract image like that, that's okay. I would like to, I guess, a little better sense of what it is I'm looking at or where this glass might have come from, some sort of context, but all in all, this is not a bad image. I gave it 9 points, and I'm not sure brown is the color or matte I would have gone with for that, but overall, it's not a bad abstract. All right, this image is bullet holes, a windshield that has been riddled with bullets, and a steering wheel silhouettes. This is a very nice image. I am impressed with the detail and the crispness in the broken glass, and the steering wheel in silhouette is fine. I'm trying to figure out what's going on, whether that's spray paint or what's going on the windshield. Some shaped fogginess over in the area in the lower right corner that's kind of looks like there might have been some shopping going on there, but not really sure. Same with some of the others around here. Not sure what's happening there, whether that's just a natural phenomenon. I haven't seen it myself on any of the cars that I've seen with bullet holes, but I suppose anything's possible. Kind of an abstract compo, but a nice shot all the way around, I think, and I think worth 9 points. I think the other shots in the category are considerably stronger, but I like the bullet holes in the glass and the detail. Old Weathered Truck is a picture that when I first picked it up, I have to confess I was kind of rubbed the wrong way by it, because it's obviously highly processed, which I'm not generally a fan of. But judging this contest as an art contest and not just a pure photography contest, looking at it in that light, there's a lot to like about this image. There's that detailed spider web down behind the steering wheel. The pedals, the detail in the glass, and the texture of the metal interior. It's a fine compo. You've got everything in there that you would like to have. You haven't really lopped anything off that shouldn't be. And I know you're working in a confined space. I've shot inside plenty of cars, and you don't always have a lot of options as to what you can and can't include. The sense of light in this is really quite striking. Overall, 9 points I think is about where this one should fall, and not a bad image. Okay, the next image is Rusty. It's a classic-looking old International Harvester truck sitting out in a nice green field at what looks to be a junkyard yet again, with blue sky, puffy clouds, beautiful day. A little bit of a trite shot. I mean, this is kind of a I'm going to go shoot a abandoned car 101 kind of a shot, but it's well executed. The colors are nicely saturated, the greens, the blues, it's all there. And the one thing I like about it is that it's a little saturated, but it looks natural. It looks like a real photograph, and I kind of like that. The gold inside the cream matte is pretty. I'm not sure. I don't know that I think it matches up with this kind of a photograph, but it doesn't distract from it too badly, I don't think. So I gave this one 10 points. I think this one's it's a nice print and a well exposed image. All right, this is Geometrics of Junk. This is another abstract image of what looks to be some car parts, maybe a tail section with a tail light missing, and a trunk or something in the background. This is just all about the shapes and the textures. From that point, it's a little hard to talk about composition, because that is obviously in the eye of the beholder here. You send 1,000 people out there, they get 1,000 different abstract shots of the same thing. So we'll talk about the color and the technique involved. The first thing that I notice about this image is the paper itself that it's printed on. This is the flat fibery paper here, and this is not a paper that I ever choose to print on, but it retains detail nicely, and I think it does match the subject matter. Although I still naturally am more inclined to see an image like this in gloss. The simple white matte doesn't take away from the image. Looks nice. I gave the image 11 points. Because I think it's very well done. It's a credible composition. It's a good exposure. The texture is conveyed well in the print and the detail. Good for 5th place in the overall placing. Okay, this image is communication breakdown. Quite an interesting shot here. I like the simple presentation. This image doesn't need a mat or anything. Just mount it on a piece of foam core and looks fine. I like the idea. The idea is very clever. This is truly a shot where you can say, I like the idea. Very clever to put the broken cell phone in there amongst the old tubes and old school electronics. A lot of texture, a lot of detail. Pretty clever title. Very nice shot. I gave it honorable mention for the master color category. I think it's very worthy of that. It's a nice shot. And I like the tip of the cap to the Led Zeppelin title. Okay, this image is My Junk TV. Third place, 13 points. Before I turned the microphone on to record this comment, what I said to myself was, I really don't like this technique, but this is about as good as I've seen this technique done. And it's a very nicely done image. You've managed to capture a lot of detail. You've eliminated some things that would naturally be in shadow, I think, but you've done so without sacrificing too much sense of depth and perspective in the picture. There's texture everywhere, and everything you get a sense of, all the dirt on the barber chair, the electronics of the TV, almost looks like what was used in the previous shot, the communication breakdown. This is a really nicely done picture. Third place, and I think very worthy of it. Congratulations. Okay, this image is closed, which I was wondering when I was going to come across an image that had the same title as one of my pictures. And I finally did, next to last one. Closed, I awarded it 14 points, good for second place in the Master's Color category. This is an image when I first looked at it, before I started looking at the quality and the texture of the photography itself, I was like, well, there's no subject here. But the more I looked at it, the more I realized that green chair sitting right in the middle is really a worthy subject on its own, along with the "Sorry We're Closed" sign and all the random garage junk around it. What I really like about it is the fact that it doesn't look all that processed. It looks natural. The colors are rich and vibrant. There's detail in the shadows where there should be. If there's solid blackness, it's where it should be. Inside of a black tire in a garage, it's going to be black. I don't need to see texture and detail in that. And I applaud you for not going overboard with the processing and taking things to extremes that would have detracted from the natural beauty of the image. You know, people talk about seeing beauty in decay. Well, this is a good example of it right here. Very nice shot, well captured, and congratulations on second place. Okay, this image is gas pump junk. Beautiful foam core mounted image of a gas pump. Very, very nicely captured. The exposure is just dead perfect. The depth of field with the old gas pump in the background. Nothing but crusty texture in this. This is a beautiful image. Definitely qualifies for junk because this thing hasn't seen service in years and won't ever see service again. Again, I can't find anything to ding this image on, really. I mean, I suppose I could pick it apart ultimately if I looked at it long enough, but I don't want to because it's a beautiful photograph as it is. You easily deserving, I think, of first place in the category this month. Congratulations. Just a great shot. Thanks for submitting it.